Did you realize that breathing exercises help the balance of our bodies? And today I got to speak to Johann Urb. Johann created this thing called the pyramid breath method. He teaches this method all around the world, and it's something very, very important to the balance of our bodies. And I actually knew his father, Armin Urb, who's been in the spiritual space for a long, long time. So Johann talks about how this works and how the benefits of breathing can help your body today. Here we go. Got Johann Urb on the show today, and I've known Johann, actually knew his father years ago, Tarmo, and his uncle, Tom, knew those guys, the Urb brothers, were singers and sang in Russia back in the day from Estonia. And Johann is from Estonia, and he was an actor in LA, is where I knew his dad and his uncle. And yes, now he is a spiritual advisor, guide, and just excited to have Johann on the show and just talk to him about what's going on, how his life changed. And I see he has a female with him all the time as well. We're going to talk about that. So,
thank God for
what's
that.
going on?
Good to see you, John. It's been a long time. It's been over 20 years almost.
Yeah,
wow.
man. Yeah. And now, don't get me wrong. The girl you're with now, was she with you in Marina Del Rey at that time, back in the day?
For almost 13 years, but no, that was pre her.
At the time, I knew Tarmo, and I met Tarmo through Eric Neese. And I remember meeting you. It was like, I don't know, might have been 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember how long it's been, but met you in Marina Del Rey. And at that time, Eric Neese kind of took me around to this whole spiritual community. I knew nothing about it. I was a redneck from North Carolina. And hence today, I've had these things come online. So it's very interesting to hear your story, being an actor, being in a big film at the time, being the pilot in a big film. I can't remember the name of the movie, but that was a big break I remember talking to Tarmo about for you. And just, I don't know, how did you change from that position to leading yourself to in Ibiza, trying to help people, healing and so forth?
I think for a lot of us, what happens is if we're not on path that we're really supposed to be on, we start feeling it. And that's certainly what happened to me. And even though I was making some big movies and TV shows and did pretty well in the acting world, I kept waiting for that moment to happen where I felt like, oh, this is my purpose. I'd be on set with amazing actors, amazing directors, and I had fun doing it. But I never got that feeling of, wow, this is what I was put on this planet to do. Throughout those years, I always kept to my spiritual practice, which kept evolving. And whenever I was doing my spiritual practice, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But story I'd created at the time was like, but I'm not experienced enough, or I don't want to do this as a profession. I'm not ready yet, or whatever else it was. And whenever I would do, whether it was be an ayahuasca ceremony or a peyote ceremony or maybe a mushroom ceremony, which was usually about maybe once or so a year, I would ask the medicine, and be like, hey, which path am I supposed to pick? And I always got the same answer, which was do both. You'll know when the time comes when that changes. And so for me, when COVID happened, everything shut down in the industry, in the acting industry. And people were locked up in their homes. And I have a very big community of friends. And a lot of my friends were living in New York as well. And at that time already, I was teaching pyramid breath, which is a modality that I got as a download. And then people would come over to my house every day, usually to practice. And people would bring their friends. And then I'd already taught a few workshops and whatnot. But during COVID, I started teaching online, and the feedback I got from people, because they were able to connect and what I called in the quantum realm, when we align our intentions and we align our prayer, we align our breath, it doesn't matter how far apart you are, it's scientifically proven, you are connected. And so that's what I really realized, how powerful it was to teach something and share something that made people feel good and made people feel hopeful and made people feel refreshed and, get out of this dark hole that a lot of us felt, during COVID, when you're stuck in your apartment, you couldn't leave in New York, you couldn't leave for months. And so I realized that in this quantum container, everything was possible. And it doesn't matter how far apart you are in the world, you can create this beautiful, powerful impact and empower people to remember who they truly are, which I believe we're all spirit. We're all the divine expressing through the body. And so after that kept happening for months, I was like, the feeling I get doing this is so much more amplified than the feeling I get when I'm acting. And so I was like, this is my moment to really give this all of my energy and all of my focus and no longer do both. And that's when I really dove into becoming solely a teacher and a guide and an advisor in this realm.
So when you talk about the breath, now this is a piece I haven't talked about. I had someone on and talked about a 21-day dry fast. And you probably know Dave Sandoval, because I think Tarmo did some stuff, Dave Sandoval, with Purium Health Products. And I always thought that was a foundation. But when I heard the process of this 21-day dry fast and really how you could heal your body as a foundation. Now, if you take that piece, let's take the breath piece, because I'm all about this alignment, because I don't think the spiritual community teaches people how to align themselves first before these modalities can work. So how did this modality come online, and what's the directive to align with this modality?
So I was attracted to spiritual practices from a very young age. When I was 14, 15, living in Finland, meditation that I started just doing it at home, it really literally saved my life, because I was just a depressed teenager. My mom and I weren't getting along. I was living in a foreign country. It was hard for me. And then I had some very mystical experiences. And then years later, I got into Kriya Yoga, which is a very traditional Indian practice, which is very powerful and amazing. But pyramid breath came through in my 30s when I began to relate to the divine, not as a him, but as a her. And not just as a her, but also as a her. So for me, I had this realization that, and this also has to do with me getting more in touch with my own feminine side, which I had really suppressed, which means, owning my feelings, not being afraid of intimacy, allowing myself to move and make sound, because all my practices were very rigid. And when I began to relate to the divine as her, this download came through where my body just began to move and make sounds. And I don't know if you've probably never done pyramid breath yet. I'll send you a link for it. But it's a very, very tantric, wild, freeing practice where we give our body permission in a sacred, safe space to express however it wants, which means you can scream, you can cry, you can rage, you can laugh, you can be in orgasmic states, whatever, and it can change at any moment. And so for me, that was so liberating. And I think for so many others as well. We're actually just doing our third teacher training right now. So this modality is getting out into the world, and people are responding to it in a really beautiful way, because it gives you this incredibly empowering remembering of your true nature, which is divine love. I believe that we all are. We are the divine, a creator, creatrix here, having this human experience. And what we have forgotten is that part. And when we remember it, not just on the level of the intellect, but on a visceral level, all parts of us remember it. You can then utilize that remembering to create your reality. You can make completely different meaning about what is going on in the world. You can completely shift the way that you treat yourself, your love towards yourself and others. The way that you shape your world, shape your reality becomes empowered versus disempowered. So that's how the practice was born. And it's my daily practice. It's what I share with all my students, all my clients. And it's very, very effective. And the nice thing about pyramid breath is I don't call it breath work. I call it breath play or breath pray. So that it takes away this idea that it's hard and difficult and challenging. You got to do it for an hour for something to happen. And then you usually, a lot of practices are done laying down. So you kind of leave your body. With pyramid breath, we stay in the body because it's done seated. And in just 5 minutes, you can get to these, or even actually faster, these deep, deep, profound states where your DMT naturally drops and you are in the divine space where there's no doubt that you are there. You know that you are there and your identity gets dissolved. Those people who smoke DMT, they know what I'm talking about. Like
now, when you say when it drops, what triggers that specifically? Is just the fluidness?
Part of the method in the breath holds and how we do the breath hold, it activates the vagus nerve as well as changes the gases in your body in such a way that for a moment, the brain goes through this mini death process, if you will. And that's what releases the DMT. And it's very, very profound, very healing. And especially when done as a daily practice, because we remember what we forget. We remember, we forget. We remember, we forget. That's why daily practice is so important. But because you can do it in 5 or 7 or 10 minutes, you can actually incorporate it into your life versus like, I need an hour to do something. That's the real effectiveness. It can be very short and still very effective.
It's funny you say that. Love. I've been going through this separation, divorce, and I don't know if I've ever felt the feelings I felt, and then going through this high sensitivities and going through this change in my life and having higher sensitivities now, and understanding that when I started thinking about that, and then I compared this to the Netflix algorithm. People don't want to feel, and what I realize is if love is the foundation of our sensitivities, and nobody wants to feel anything, we're supposed to feel that side of the spectrum to create balance. So if we don't know how that feels, then that's going to limit us and push us to where we're at now, to a darker position, because that blew me away. I said, we have to feel the extreme of love if love is the foundation of our sensitivities. So that makes a lot of sense, because I said this thing one time about, and I mentioned this a lot as a reference, but the Netflix algorithm is like 75% a dark production schedule, because society's being fed this darkness. So when they come home, they want to be fed the same thing, because tone attracts tone. So it's very interesting. You mentioned love and this kind of giving us feelings maybe we're not experiencing. Most people aren't experiencing today. This is opening up the flow to feel that other side of ourselves. Is that basically what you're saying?
I believe that the universal consciousness is an energy of love. However, in order for us to appreciate love, we also have to feel the opposite of love. That's why we live in a duality. You cannot have expansion without contraction. You can have black without white. Can't have positive without negative. And so to me, it's really about how do we incorporate all these parts of ourselves and all these aspects of the creation in an empowering way. And to what you alluded to, talking about what people click on is fear. That's why we're fed so much of fear in the news cycle and even in the shows that we watch, because we have 5-to-1 negativity bias, every single human being, because we're always looking for the danger. And that's the easiest way that we're going to scroll, we're going to click. Fear is a part of it because it's just programmed into our biology. So a lot of what I teach is how do we reverse that to a positivity bias so that we begin to think positive thoughts, feel positive feelings. And instead of just having automatic thoughts, we create the thoughts and the feelings. And again, in order to get there, the breath is really, really powerful because it resets the nervous system. So it gets a lot of the stuff out of the way that's been in there for a long time. Because we do releases where we scream, shake, cry. Everything is welcome in that space because you know that you're doing it for a short amount of time so you can go all out and not hold any part of you back. And so it doesn't come out in places where it's unsafe or unproductive. But rather you create the space for yourself daily where you give yourself permission to go total. And then from that place, when you release the energy, then you get to create with this energy now what you desire. And I think that that's something that we have forgotten as a species, that we are the creator creatrixes. It's not outside of ourselves. It's right here. It's just the keys to access it are important. And so that's what I'm passionate about, is sharing with people these keys, these tools, so people can live an empowered life.
It's finding thyself, basically. I mean, I don't think people go about this of finding thyself. And that's one of the biggest things been said forever when you think about it. Well, I come up with this thing called Creation of Four. And I had this information about knowing the four corners of the world. One of them is where I'm from, aligns with them, the Atlas Mountains perfectly, and then Greenland, and then the Antarctica, the other two parts. God created everything by fours. And then when I started realizing about understanding creation and resetting humanity or establishing humanity the right way. So I wrote this book called Finding a Perfect Audience, where I use social media to emulate the quantum field. If you put out data, because the internet emulates our nervous system and social media mirrors human behavior, and the only thing that offsets human behavior is the algorithm. Right. So when you understand that, and you can predetermine, you can put out a tone, and whatever you get back, you can predetermine your audience based on the tone you put out to the world, because it's almost like the social media gives you a casting call that's already been done. And let's say if we take a baby and we know let's transition to a human being. We have a lot of this information from our environment, from our foundation, and just from our birth date alone, knowing the right directions, right? For success, for wealth, for health. We already know all this information. So if we come up with this process of, all right, understand your environment for, the baby, understand the non-conscious being and their directions. We eliminate the bad customer before your sensitivities kick in. And then we're going to teach you how, to your 7 years old, that your subconscious is being programmed. And we're going to prepare you before you get there, because we can do that. This stuff started coming in about this alignment. Some people out there, I just don't think they look at that foundation the right way, because you have to align that foundation for all this other stuff to work. So it sounds like this breath thing is like after the non-conscious being is a piece of the puzzle. Could you plug this in with like kids at a young age to set humanity in the right direction? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that what's more important even than the kids is how are the parents, right? What is the frequency of the parents, and how can they reprogram themselves and their cells and their atoms and their parts, so that when the child is around them, they are, because they're just absorbing all the time. I think when we, the ones that are able to take responsibility and our brains are fully formed, how can we actually change ourselves in such a way that the energy flows downstream into our kids and the younger generations as a blessing, as a gift? Because we've dealt with a lot of our own shadows and our own programs that are broken, that we weren't even aware of were broken.
It goes back to the science part. Our alignment is messed up because science only recognizes two parts of law of attraction. And we're not recognizing the esoteric part and the sensibility part. So when we pull that back in, because science has paid attention to these two parts, it's created a realm of physics that has put us in discovery mode. The realm of physics we're in currently right now is not a correct realm of physics. The correct realm of physics is the quantum field. So we are that naive. The reason I'm saying this, because this all goes with what I talk about. It just kind of plugs right in. The only scientists that have kind of broke from the science community are the neuroscientists that understand this. And we are such, I guess our egos are so big that we can defy God's real physics, the quantum field, and create our own. So this starts with science, right? And aligning humans the right way.
Yeah.
Right. When we get to that point, I think we're headed in that direction, if you will, where we can start to align people the right way and eliminate the bad customer. And then these modalities in the chain, because I don't think even the spiritual community hasn't realized that, hey, we have to get this foundation right. And then once we start plugging all this shit in, then we're really cooking with gas.
A lot of scientists, which is crazy, they like certainty. And because they like certainty, they're unwilling to explore, quantum physics or things like that, because there's so much uncertainty, or there's so much unknown there, even though it seems to me that is absolutely the way to go. And I think, I don't know much about science, I love reading, science articles, but I'm certainly no scientist of that kind. But I do consider myself very much a scientist in my exploration of my inner world. Like the sages say, the inner is just as great and big as the outer. And when we learn the tools to go within and be curious and be in discovery and learn to align ourselves and ourselves, magic begins to happen. That's my direct experience, and that's, again, what I believe is us connecting back to that divine order and divine self that is all knowing and all powerful, still keeping it adventurous. I believe that we've chosen to incarnate and to be in these bodies because we're on an adventure. In this just like warm, like beautiful state of, foreverness, but we've come here to have these adventures. We've chosen to forget so we can remember again. We've chosen to have duality to deal with, because it's fun.
Well, it's funny when I look at you and think about your uncle and your dad. Now, I had this theory about Scandinavians that I thought the Scandinavians were the leftovers from Atlantis because they're the ones that engineered the world. And I look at, Tom, I think you and Tom look more like Vikings than maybe your dad. When you think about that, have you ever thought about that? Like maybe that's where because your dad had some modalities and stuff. You ever thought that maybe where your spirituality came from?
It's interesting. I was very, very, there was a moment in my life where I was really, really interested in Atlantis and Lemuria and a lot of these old cultures. And there's an amazing book called The Holy Science by Paramahansa Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, where he talks about the yugas, which, in India and Sanskrit, the yuga means essentially era. And what they talk about is this: you have these different yugas that go in a circle. And there's if you will, the dark ages, and then you go into an age that is after the dark age called Dwapara Yuga, which we're in, according to him, right now. And you have essentially the silver age and you have the golden age. We go in this circle essentially where we're come from the darkness, we don't know anything, and we get to the golden age where we know everything, and then we start going down again where we forget everything. And so if I think in those terms, I think there's likely been many Atlantises, many Lemurias, high civilizations that have come and gone, and that cycle will likely continue because everything is always changing. Nothing is static. And so I wouldn't be surprised if all of us have, in some way come from there. And I also believe in reincarnation. I've had many a past life regression where I've figured some major stuff out that is cleared in my field and in my body and traveled, in time, if you will. So I definitely believe in the mystery of what's been before us and also the great technologies that were here before us.
Now, how does this business work for you there? You're in LA. You grew up in Estonia as well, or did you grow up in LA? You grew up in New York and LA, right? Because didn't you model?
I did model. Yeah, that was kind of my ticket to the States. And I lived in New York for 6 years doing that until I got into acting and then moved to LA in 2001 and then moved to Ibiza almost 3 years ago. Ibiza is amazing. And again, what's amazing is what I've realized is with the internet, most of my clients are online. I used to have this limiting belief, the story that I have to be with them in person in order for them to experience a transformation or a change. And I now know that is simply not true. Thousands of students all over the world, led retreats in person and did it also online. And the effect is similar or the same, which is it happens inside of us. It's not me who's creating, we're co-creating it. I'm blessed to be able to live essentially anywhere in the world. And my wife and I, we teach together, we travel together. We're about to go on a 5-month travel journey, and we still have our clients and our students. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Now tell me a little bit about the other half. Do you feel like, it seems like y'all fit well together. Do you feel like y'all are like the masculine and feminine representatives, or you know what I mean? That's kind of what it looks like to me.
We are very, very blessed. We didn't always have it easy. We've gone through our ruptures and moments of contraction. And because of those ruptures and moments of contraction, we developed the tools that we have today, that we work with a lot of couples as well and help them through tough times. And it's just amazing what we don't know, what we're not taught in school or kindergarten or by our parents. And one of the things we're not taught is how to communicate. Usually when we communicate, especially when things get spicy, we tend to blame, shame, guilt, project onto people, versus take responsibility and own and talk parts of ourselves and the stories that we're witnessing and so forth and so forth. So Rachel, my wife, is one of my greatest teachers, an incredible partner. And together, we just, I truly feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Like I have that relationship with my wife that is growing and expanding. And even though we've been together for almost 13 years, we're more in love than ever. We have the best intimacy, it's constantly evolving and getting better because we are constantly choosing to learn and grow together. That's really one of the secrets to keeping a long-term relationship great, is that you are pushing your edges. You're willing to go towards the vulnerabilities. You're willing to expose your shadow and then make art with it. Make magic with it, make love with it. And Tantra is a big part of our life. And we just feel very, very blessed to have found each other.
Do you think this breath work may open you up where you can understand your partner better?
Yeah. One of the things that we offer to all of our students and our clients is to bring this practice into, if you're in a couple, likely most 98% of the people, or probably more, are not speaking their truth. They're not able to fully communicate what's going on. So one part is the verbal communication skills, and the other part is the subconscious and the unconscious. And when you practice pyramid breath, what happens is that part of you, you're giving that part of you permission to express, so that we know this is 5% of us, our intellect, and the rest is 95. So now the 95% is beginning to communicate without the need of the intellect to first filter what is going on. So a lot of truth, a lot of unexpressed feelings, emotions, hurts, triggers, traumas can surface, but because you've created a safe and sacred space for them to express, you actually feel so much more compassion for each other. You feel so much more connected. You might experience your partner crying or sobbing or going through a big moment, yet you keep practicing and breathing through that moment together. So you learn that it's not unsafe to be in that moment, because it can transform and it can change. And then the way that you then begin to approach these moments, especially because you've also hopefully learned the tools how to communicate, what we call co-devotional communication, you can now address what was unearthed, what was underneath there that you maybe were too scared to say or didn't even know that was there. You sectioned it off, and now you can begin the healing process. And you begin to trust each other, to create safety for each other, to be whole, to be full, to be fully expressed.
I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this. I mean, I've do Tai Chi. This Tai Chi workout's about 10, 15 minutes. So it's very similar, but I didn't realize how much the breath opens up the body so much. You know, I mean, it really does.
It does. I mean, Tai Chi is wonderful. I myself practiced it for some years. I think that especially, with breath modalities like pyramid breath that take you deep quickly, because in today's world, a lot of people don't have, or they create a story that they don't have time. So we need modalities that allow us quick access to the depth of our being, and especially to be able to disassociate from our identity, from a story. I think that I am this body, this personality, this idea of myself. When you disassociate from that, which usually happens in like deep medicine space, right? You gain a glimpse into who you really are. But if you can gain a glimpse of who you really are every day, you remembering becomes like normal. And so whenever you come up against a tough moment in your life and you go into storyland, I'm not enough, or, life sucks, or life is happening to me versus for me, you immediately get to correct the course and change the energy and create a new empowering meaning instead. It's happening for me. I believe that I'm empowered. And just when we tell ourselves that, the way that our state immediately changes, and then the way that we approach whatever is happening changes, and therefore everything changes.
I never met your mom. How is your dad doing, by the way? And where's your mom at? Is she in Estonia?
So my mom is still living in Finland. I just saw her. I saw both of them not so long ago. I was in Estonia teaching a couple of retreats and a festival, and they're doing okay. They're doing all right. My dad has been in the healing space now for some years and doing a lot of healing work. Him and Tom are beginning to sing again. They did a bunch of concerts in Estonia and are talking about doing more. Yeah, my mom is, I would say, doing pretty good as well.
I just asked because I'm sure your mom's very beautiful. I don't know if you got your looks from your dad. You must have got them from your mother.
Yeah, my mom, very beautiful woman. Yes. Yeah, yeah. My mom's side of the family, and my grandmother was actually one of the first female models in Estonia, which is hilarious to think about, but very, very beautiful. So my mom's mom was also gorgeous.
If someone's out there and they're very interested in doing this practice, how do they find you, and where would they go?
The best way to find me is either on Instagram. You'd go to Urb Johann on Instagram, or you'd go to devotionmethod.com. Devotionmethod.com combines me and Rachel's work, and also has all the links to our trainings and all the other things that are, the Pyramid Breath channel, where there's hundreds of videos that are pre-recorded, where I also do 2 new videos every week that are live, and my wife's offerings as well as what we are creating together, and all of our retreats and so forth that are upcoming are also on there.
Y'all do retreats? You and your wife just do retreats? Y'all set up somewhere and then just go do this for a week or so or something?
We work with different organizations. Like we work with Mind Valley, we work with YPO, we do our own retreats as well. And we work with festivals. We just did a festival in Zurich in Switzerland that was really amazing, called Heal, Play, Love. I sometimes would collaborate with other people on retreats as well, which we very much enjoy. So we give our gift in a way that feels nourishing to us. Desire isn't to overwork ourselves or, become this crazy conglomerate thing or whatever, but really just a big part of the way that we live and what we teach is to live your life. Because, time in this body is not guaranteed. So it's like, make sure that no matter what you do in life, you're also taking time to live, to explore, to learn, to really enjoy. We spend a lot of time on our devices. We spend a lot of time worrying. We spend a lot of time, I feel like, wasting life, where we could be really, really enjoying life. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts when you bring ritual into your life, practices and tools into your life. You get to become the captain of your ship. You design your life now with awareness versus just going automatically along with what you're fed from the outside. And that's, I believe, one of the most potent and powerful shifts that humans can make for themselves.
You know what I say the best thing about life is life.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. You know what I mean? Johann Urb, I appreciate you coming on the show. And I think this pyramid breath is very, very interesting. I think it's a piece of the puzzle that we need to explore more, because when you think about breath, that's not talked about a lot in just in general in the medical society, because I know a lot of people, they have these breathing issues when they get older because they don't breathe enough, maybe. You know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Sadly, again, it's beginning to change very slowly, but the mainstream Western medical system has not adapted this yet. There are doctors out there who absolutely have and use, mindfulness and breathing as a modality of healing. But again, pharmaceutical companies aren't making any money when that happens, and they're not getting kickbacks. And we're so trained that it's going to be a pill or a powder or a needle or something that's going to fix us, versus it's going to be our body's intelligence that's with our intention and breath that gets initiated and activated, that heals us from inside out. We've been sourcing stuff from outside in because that's where you make money versus inside out. And I think that's the shift that really needs to happen in the world, that people wake up to that and understand that they're master healers. They just like you and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't think that we were going to end up being in a healer or a teacher at one point, but it was innate in us, and somehow it got activated, and here we are today.
100%. Well, sir, Johann Urb, appreciate you coming on the show. My name's John Edmonds Kozma, CEO of Bang Productions, owner of the TikTok Live, creator, network agency, and host of the Unimpressed Podcast. Until next time.